Greetings everyone. So I'm going to play you a few clips from a testimony on the EWTN program Journey Home. I don't know if you've ever seen any of the episodes on Journey Home. It's quite interesting. It's basically different people's testimonies of how they became Catholics. Sometimes it's from people who converted from another denomination of Christianity. Sometimes it's from people who converted from another religion. Sometimes it will be people who had no faith at all and became Catholics. Sometimes it will be former Catholics who left the faith and then came back to the faith. In this particular case, it is somebody who converted from another religion. Her name is Nikki Kingsley, and she was a Muslim for a very long time. And she had a very interesting, powerful, mystical journey to the Catholic Church. It's an almost hour-long interview, and I'm just going to play you a few clips from it here, the things that I think were the most interesting. But of course, if you do want to see the full interview, I will put a link into the description so you can have a look at that. But I'm going to sum a few things up that she says early on in the full-length interview. She basically talks about how she lived in Pakistan, and she essentially needed to get away from there with her child or children, I can't remember exactly, because her husband wasn't a very good husband, he wasn't treating them well. And so she managed to get away to the USA, but she remained a Muslim, although she was finding slowly that she was getting dissatisfied in her Islamic faith. She felt like she'd prayed these 5 prayers a day and so on, and she would ask Allah to reveal himself, and she just felt this emptiness. She just felt like she was looking at a wall, like it was pitch black and there was nothing there. Now, on a visit to New York City, she decided to enter a cathedral. It was St. Patrick's Cathedral. I've never been to New York City. I've never been to that cathedral, but if you have, maybe you can tell me if it's nice. She went in there as a tourist to have a look around. And then basically, as she was getting ready to leave, she had this incredible mystical experience.
And so I walked around, admired everything, and near the exit is the little gift shop. So I stopped there, the kids were with me, and all of a sudden I heard a woman's voice in my ear, my left ear, the most sweetest voice, and she said, "Come back, come back." And I looked and there was nobody there. And I'm thinking, okay, this is not happening, so I ignored it. And then again, that whisper, and then I knew it was Mary. And standing in there, I didn't think Maryam, that the word was Mary. It's her.
How amazing. Mary basically called her back into the church. Mary spoke to this woman, and as she was going to leave the church after basically having a look around, as many people do, they don't really care much for the religious side of the church. They just go in to see the structure of the building and how pretty it is. She gets called back to Mary's chapel. She says she's in the chapel and she's asking Mary what she wants, and she doesn't really get any answer.
She was calling me to her chapel at the back of St. Patrick's. And so I went back because I couldn't ignore her. Yeah, I loved her so much. And so I went into her chapel and I stood there because I wasn't going to kneel. I'm a Muslim. And I stood and I asked her, "What do you want?" And I heard nothing, but I felt such a peace.
Later on after this, she said all kinds of odd things were happening to her. She was having dreams and visions, and they were all Christian ones. There wasn't anything Islamic about them. She wasn't seeing Muhammad or anything like that. She was getting Christian dreams and Christian visions, even to the point where she was actually being told to go to certain places that she went to that were either some kind of a church or chapel. And she was getting very confused by this and very frustrated. And eventually she decided to actually go to a Christian service. And she went to a midnight mass, except that she went to one at a Protestant church. And as you'll see from what she says, she kind of left there a bit disappointed.
I thought, I'll go to a church on my own for Christmas, and I am going to ask Jesus, because the church is his home, what he wants from me, and I want to be done with this. And so I went to a Christmas midnight service to a church down the road from my house. To me, a church was a church. I didn't know denomination, and it was a Christian church. And I went in, and there was a service, and it was a beautiful service. I could feel the love. It was wonderful. People were welcoming. And I came out And I was so disappointed because he wasn't there. I felt this emptiness in my heart because I knew what his presence would feel like. I just knew. And I walked out thinking, Jesus, you're not even in your own church.
So she goes to this mass, she leaves disappointed. Then she talks to her friend, who's a Catholic, and her friend basically convinces her to go to a Catholic church. Now she's really fed up at this point. She eventually agrees, but she says she won't go to a service, she'll just enter the Catholic church. So she did find herself a Catholic church, and she entered, and it was just like a completely different experience.
I took my first step in. It was a Catholic church. And to me, what's a Catholic church? It's just a church, right? And I took my first step in, and I took a breath, and I said, he lives here. I can feel him. I felt physically his presence.
Now, I've got to be honest with you. I've never had that. I've never gone into a Catholic church. And obviously I go into Catholic churches a lot for Mass. I've never felt like, yes, Jesus is here. I can feel his presence. I know he's here. Obviously I believe he is, but I've never felt that in any way. And she says that she felt it. So lucky her, I guess. Another amazing grace, an amazing gift that she was given. First to be able to hear Mary speaking to her, and now to be able to go into a Catholic church and just know, despite still being a Muslim, that Jesus is present in that church. So anyway, she decides to go to that church regularly. She doesn't go to Mass. She doesn't want to go there when there are people there, but she goes there regularly, sits in the back pew, and actually argues with the crucifix, as she says in her own words.
From that day, I started going to that Catholic church every day when no one was there, and I would sit in the back pew alone, and I would argue with the crucifix. And I would tell him every day I was there, you're not the Son of God, because there is no Son of God. What do you want from me? Why are you doing this to me? Oh, I would be angry. I would say it all. And I'd show up the next day and do the same thing and tell him, he's not the Son of God.
So she's there, she's regularly telling Jesus that he isn't the Son of God, and asking him what he wants from her. And then I guess it must have been persistence that she got given another grace, an amazing grace, probably the most amazing grace she's had in her life.
So this went on for months, and finally one day God had had enough, I think, of me. And I walked in, sat down, did the same thing, last pew, and that day I heard the audible voice of God echo in that church. I heard it with my ears. And he said to me, who are you to tell me who I can be and cannot be? If you really want to know the truth, go and come back like a child, and I will tell you the truth. And so I went back. Of course, I had to. And I sat down and I emptied my mind. I had to know the truth. He had taken me on this journey. And I sat down and I said, tell me. And I emptied my mind. And I was 40 years old. I had to empty it of everything I had learned as a Muslim, my fears, everything. And when I did that, a bolt of light came from that crucifix, and it hit my heart. It went through my body, and I shook, and I collapsed on my knees because Jesus was right in front of me. And I knew everything. And all I could sob out was, I believe you are the Son of God.
It really is an amazing thing that she experienced. I did try and get a hold of her. I was hoping to actually talk to her personally about this experience, but with no luck. So I thought, well, I'll just talk about it a little bit and use some clips from an interview she did with EWTN. These kind of testimonies are very powerful and very important. They really do help a lot of people, because a lot of people go through dry periods. A lot of people feel what she felt in the Islamic faith. They feel that in the Christian faith. They feel like they pray and there's just nothing there. They're not getting any response. They don't feel any closer to God. They don't feel like they're getting any answers from him. So this testimony is really helpful. It's a helpful reminder that he is there, and sometimes he just sort of cloaks himself in mystery, but we have to keep persevering and keep our faith alive. Thanks for watching the video, folks. Let me know what you think in the comments section. Have a blessed day.